On behalf of my colleagues, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to the Afghan American community and all our guests to the Library of Congress and the African and Middle Eastern Division. I'm Joan Weeks. I'm head librarian for the Near East section, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about our collections and services. The African and Middle Eastern Division serves as a major research center and houses collections in over 33 vernacular languages from 77 countries in Africa, the Middle East, the Caucasus, Central Asia, with our 3 sections. Our African section covers the countries of Sub-Saharan Africa, and the Africana collections of the Library of Congress include materials produced over the centuries by people living in Sub-Saharan Africa and by the others inspired by the continent. So we have vast collections for our African section that our researchers enjoy coming and using. We have our Hebraic section that covers Jewish studies worldwide, and the collections include works in Hebrew, Yiddish, Ladino, Judeo-Persian, Judeo-Arabic, Aramaic, and Syriac. And the section's holdings are especially strong in the areas of the Bible, rabbinics, liturgy, Hebrew language and literature, responsa, and Jewish history. And our Near East section covers the Arabic-speaking countries of North Africa, the Middle East, Armenia, Georgia, the Caucasus, as well as the Turkic and Iranic-speaking countries in Central Asia, Afghanistan, that we're focusing on today. I would like to invite all of you to come to our African and Middle Eastern Division on the second floor of this division, of this library, and to get a researcher card and use these collections for your research. A lot of times people don't realize that they can come in and use the collections. And for those who are out of town, I'd invite you to look very closely at all the collections back there. We have digitized a lot of the collections. We are trying to get you to connect and tell people what they can get to from our digital collections. And you can download them. These beautiful images that you're seeing, you can make pictures for your home. You can download the books. You can enjoy them from wherever you happen to be going back. So this program is made possible through the generous support of the Lilly Endowment. And now I'd like to turn the mic over to my colleague, Harad Dinavari, who will start the conversation with our speaker, Lina Rezba. Welcome in, everyone.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you. That was the head of the Near East section, my supervisor. I'm hitting all kinds of buttons. My apologies. I'm Harad Dinavari. I'm the Iranic or Persian specialist here. And I just wanted to show, based on what you're seeing on the screen right now, a lovely slideshow that showcases our Afghan collections. We have a little display for you out there to look at. We started years ago with the World Digital Library, doing a wonderful series of rare Afghan materials. It was funded by the Carnegie Institute. We've now digitized these lithographs that you're looking at. We have some examples of it out there. And there have been other things, lectures, exhibitions. We had Voices from Afghanistan with Radio Free Europe and the Persian Book Exhibit, and on and on. And we will talk about these as we go through. But today we're really here to showcase a wonderful poetess who, over the years, as I've been watching and listening to Persian media, Iranian, Afghan diaspora media, we have heard her poems over and over, and it's always been very enlightening. Miss Lina Rouzbeh, who you see here as our guest today, is an acclaimed and award-winning Afghan writer and poet in her native Dari Persian. Her works include short stories, poetry, as well as social and political commentaries, which have been published in major languages like Persian, Pashto, but also English as well. She formerly served as an editor-in-chief of Ziba, socio-cultural fashion magazine, as well as the columnist for the Omid Weekly, which is a weekly that is published locally in the Virginia area, if I'm correct? Omid? Yes. And we've been getting it regularly. The recipient of several awards, Rina Rouzbeh, her literary contributions have been recognized and featured in books about Afghan poets and women writers. Lina Rouzbeh is a frequent speaker and panelist on Afghanistan issues and has been interviewed by Afghan and international media. She received her bachelor's degree in political science and international relations from Concordia University and a second degree in communications, media, and cinema from Vanier College in Montreal, Canada. I can go on and on. She has a very distinguished career, and besides going into all that, I actually want to have a conversation with her today instead of making this too academic. So what I'm going to do is trying to introduce you to Lina and essentially have a window into how she essentially forged the way that she has. To start with, Lina Jan, it's very nice to have you here. It's a delight. I'm just curious if you could tell us, where were you born, where were you raised, and essentially, since leaving Afghanistan, where have you lived and studied?
Sure. Well, first of all, hello to all of you. I would like to thank the Library of Congress for inviting me to this event. I'm honored. Thanks to Hirat and to Sanaji for organizing everything. And thank you all for taking time off your busy schedules to be with us here today. I was born in Kabul, Afghanistan, capital city of Afghanistan, but my parents are from Herat, which is a city in west of Afghanistan. When they got married, they decided to move to Kabul because there were more career or job opportunities for them. And me and my siblings, two sisters and one brother, we were born in Kabul. Unfortunately, we did not get a lot of years or time to live in Afghanistan because shortly after the Soviet Union invaded, or Russia invaded Afghanistan, and my family, like many others, were forced to leave Afghanistan. My father initially decided to take us to Iran because we spoke Farsi, and we thought, moving to Iran won't give us as much a culture shock as we may, go to some other country that speak a different language or have a different culture, and we may not get as homesick as we think by leaving our country. So we went to Iran, and we chose a small, beautiful city north of Iran called Bujnord, which is a very green, beautiful city, a small city, and we went to school there. I finished almost my high school in Iran. And then, for some reasons, my father decided, because of the limitation that existed for Afghan refugees in Iran, my father thought that it's time for us to move to the United States because he finished his education in the 70s in California. He was a civil engineer. And he thought that the US will probably accept us as a refugee. And we were old enough to remember our language. One of the major concerns that my father had was that we don't forget Farsi or Dari and that we know our culture. So we reached the age where he thought, now, this is the time that I can take them to another country and rest assured that they remember their heritage and their background. We moved to Pakistan. We lived in Islamabad and Peshawar. Unfortunately, the US Embassy decided to reject our refugee case, and we tried Canada. Unfortunately, Canada accepted us as an immigrant, and we moved to Montreal, Canada, where I finished my higher education I was wondering about what to study. You know, I was newly arrived refugee, and we end up in a city, you know, that spoke French, Montreal, Canada, in province of Quebec. So it was not easy for me to select a subject, but because of our chaotic life, because of what was happening to Afghanistan, I decided to choose political science to really make sense of why is all this chaos is happening to my country, why there is no, you know, end to the cycle of political tensions that Afghans and Afghanistan is going through. So I finished my bachelor degree in political science, and then one of my lifelong dreams was to become a documentary maker. So I thought, why not I pursue another degree in communication, media, and cinema? So I went to Anya College, and I also finished my education there. But little did I know that life planned otherwise for me. So I got married, and yet I had to move again. So another move to another completely, not different country, but to another country. So I packed my bag, I married my husband, and he was living in the US, and I had to come to US. So since early 2000, I'm living in the US. I call US home, but my suitcases are packed because I feel like I'm a nomad. I may have to leave US anytime soon and go to another country. So I'm ready, but I don't know where, but I may move
It's
again.
a fairly common story now that's happening over and over elsewhere. But no, this is fantastic. I had no idea you had been to so many places. And so the interesting thing is Iran, Pakistan, Canada, US, these different experiences, how has it affected your activism is loud and clear, especially when it comes to women. And it's something that's always spoken to all Persian speakers. As you know, the issue is a very you know, daily, common, but also hot topic of the day, not just among Afghans, among Iranians, among others, because this is something that's now in the news daily. But in addition to women, you've also written about migration, about being a refugee, if you like that word, or having to move constantly. How have these experiences shaped your writing, first of all? And then I also see that you have stories as well as poetry. Which mediums do you prefer? Why poetry? And we're just going to listen to you and see what you think. Go ahead.
Sure. Well, life as a refugee is never easy. I'm not gonna lie and say, you know, it's amazing. You travel from country to country, and there's such an exotic lifestyle that you get to see all these different countries. Your life is spent pretty much. When I look back, I was very young when we left Afghanistan. I was not older than 8 or 9 years old when we left Afghanistan. So my life was pretty much spent in adjusting myself to the environment of every country that we moved to. I had to learn the languages. I had to experience so many challenges, and some of these countries who are not as refugee friendly as the Western countries are, such as Iran or Pakistan, and go through a lot of hardship just to have a simple lifestyle, I would say. You know, we witnessed my dad looking for a job. We witnessed my mom building a home for us. And then we leave everything, and then you move to another country, and then you start from zero again. So these are all, I think, for a young child to go through that over and over and over again. It has psychological impact that you feel it usually later on in life. And I'm feeling it right now. I'm not gonna lie, some days I'm driving and all of a sudden I wanna cry, because all that comes back to you, all the challenges and difficulties that you overcome. But on the positive note, moving from country to country, living in different environments makes you a person who can relate to everyone. You get to know people better. You get to know cultures better. You're not just learning about people through books. You get to live with them. And the amazing part of refugee life for me was that I lived in Iran, that I lived in Pakistan, I've been to India, Canada, and US, and I find common people, despite our differences, we are very much alike than we are different from one another. And that's I think, one of the greatest experiences that I had as a refugee. And of course, you learn different languages, you learn about different cultures, and I think the impact that refugee life has on you in terms of building an identity for yourself is that you pretty much feel like you don't belong to anywhere. I feel like US is my home, but I'm very much in touch with Afghanistan. I feel that's my motherland. You know, my heart beats for Afghanistan. I'm sorry. But US is home. Canada is my second home. If I drink a cup of tea, I get nostalgic about Pakistan. If it's New Year's, I get nostalgic about Iran. So it's like all these countries are my home, and yet I don't belong to any of them. Afghanistan is my motherland, and yet I cannot connect to it because I was so young when I left Afghanistan. I don't remember anything from my country. My identity, my personality was pretty much built moving from country to country. So as Rumi has a beautiful poem about this, Makanam la makan bashad. I have no place to call my own, and yet I belong to all these places. So I think that's the positive aspect of you living as a refugee.
And on women especially, you've been very outspoken, and your poems really speak loudly. I've asked you to select one of these beautiful poems, and especially I'm going to go to a slide now where Lina was kind enough to not only have the original Persian, but translate it. Translations are not easy. And this one really speaks to me, Yaghi, a rebel, is something that is profound. I am going to ask Lina, please read it both in the original Farsi and English, and you have it both in paper and you have it in front of you as well.
Well, I'm going to read it in Farsi, I think, and we can follow the English version.
Absolutely. I will, you folks follow the English translation, and she will read it in Farsi for you. Sure. Go ahead.
یاغی نه زلفانم نه چشمانم نه تیغ تیز مژگانم میان برقه جهلت چرا خود را بپوشانم چرا باید اسارتها همیشه فرض زن باشد تو آزاد و رها باشی و من محبوس زندانم نگاه از تو گناه از تو تمام ماجرا از تو و در قاموس جهل تو زنم از جنس شیطانم مؤنث‌های درد من در این مصرع نمی گنجد از این سنگسارهای این مذکرها و جولانم زبانم تیزتر بادا که در این عصر جهالت زا که من تکفیر جهل مطلق تو در شبستانم خدا هم خوب میداند که من بی باک و بی پروا بهشتش را رها کردم اطاعت نیست در شانم نه خیر آقا مطیع آدم و جنست نمیگردم بله با افتخار یک یاغی در اوج عصیانم و شور و شعف چشمانم و موج مست زلفانم بدون برقه می رقصم بدون برقه می مانم چراغان می کنم این شهر را با اشک و آه خود که من در کیش و دین تو ز تو بهتر مسلمانم.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So to me, what really stands out also, and this is individual interpretation, is there's a lot of folks who are activists who are essentially rejecting religion, rejecting tradition. You're not. You're essentially saying, especially in the last line, that I am already a good Muslim. Who are you to tell me? This is questioning the chauvinism of certain people who think they have a better understanding of faith. And it's really beautiful, this poem. It really, really, to me, was striking. But I also want to say that outspoken women in Afghanistan and Persian culture are there. They have been there. And I am so glad that Lina is one of the people who is now giving voice to Afghan women. But I also want to say we have documented at the library some really rare gems. I think I'm going the wrong direction, that we have here. In fact, I have Ayesha Dorani's anthology on display. Ayesha Dorani was a queen, an Afghan queen from the Pashtun Dorani family. We have the lithographic publication from Kabul from 1881, her anthology of poems and ghazals, love poems. And these poems are truly outspoken. This is the lady who started the first women's girls' school in Afghanistan. So here we are glad and proud to have, the oldest item I have in the Persian collection is not from Iran, it's from Afghanistan. It's this item. This is from the Persian language collection, and right now Yoram is holding it up. And Ayesha Dorani's anthology is right there. Also, going back to the 9th, 10th century, we have poetry from Rabi'eh Balkhi. Rabi'eh Balkhi from the city of Balkh was a princess also, but in the 9th, 10th century, she dared, at that time, to write love poems about the slave boy, Baktash, that she loved. And this was very outspoken in the Persian-speaking world. And we have examples of outstanding women century after century after century. And it's continued, and we have a wonderful example right here in this room. Lina has been writing some really outstanding poetry. So I wanted to show you two examples of outspoken women in the Persian language, but also give you examples of other items that we've digitized. We've digitized rare manuscripts and lithographs, and so we have examples of that over there for you as well. And I also want to now switch gears towards classical Persian literature. Lina Jan, I know that a lot of the poets and the writing that's being done now are modern and are new, but I think all of us are impacted in some way by the classical canon of Persian. But I also know in Afghanistan, and despite the ethnic tensions that are there is a rich tradition of Pashto poetry as well. So we have brought examples of Pashto material as well. I'm just curious to see what classics influenced you. I see that in some of your work, you also clearly have a very Sufi and Rumi feel in some of your poems. In fact, we're going to showcase one of them. I would love to see what you think of the classics, what you think of the poetry tradition in general, but also are there any in Pashto that you also like or you follow?
Well, we spoke of Maulana Jalaluddin Balkhi, who's known as Rumi. He was born in Balkh in Afghanistan, and he's known as the father of Sufism. And I'm sure you followed his work, especially his poem from his second book, which is Diwan Shams. Once he fell in love or made these acquaintances with Shams Tabriz, and Shams Tabriz left him. Diwan Shams consisted of over 80,000 poems just about his feeling toward Shams. Of course, Shams, we think of him as a human being, but for Maulana, he saw the greatness of divine in Shams. And the poetry that he's writing that is actually, we think is to Shams, is actually indirectly targeting or speaking about God. And Diwan Shams actually has other book, Masnavi Manavi, which is consisted of almost 30,000 poems, is called the Quran of Sufism, or the Holy Book of Sufism. So if you're a follower of the school of Sufism, you must read Masnavi Manavi. And if you want to really, I always say, experience a true form of love where your spirits sort of leave your body and you feel, as Maulana says, as a light as a particle, then you read Diwan Shams. I think all of us, not only us in the region, but also those who read the work of Rumi, somehow they get influenced by him, they get inspired by him. And what I like about Maulana is that Maulana Jalaluddin Balkhi was the pioneers in combating fundamentalism in our region. That he was speaking about a form of religion that I personally believe is actually the true Islam. It's the direct connection between you and God, and that the sole purpose of you being on earth is to be a good human and to do good deeds, and you understand that you are a passerby. I mentioned it before, his verse, Makanam la makan bashat. Maulana says, I have no place that I feel like I belong to. I'm a traveler. There is a path, so I'm going on this path and I'm passing places until I reach my destination, which is obviously death. His poems, the way he looks at religion, is something that's very appealing to me, or people like us who are right now, we're fighting two different battles. Human rights in Afghanistan, women's rights, which is as a result of exactly misinterpretation of religion. Right now, the Taliban in Afghanistan believe that women shouldn't go to school, women should stay home, and they're confined their four walls of their houses. And the sole purpose of a woman is to get married and have kids. And Maulana was exactly doing the opposite of that, saying the opposite of that. So that's very appealing to me, and that's really inspires me when I read his poetry. Other than that, I think, yes, as you mentioned, we have Khoshal Khan Khattak, who is also a very prominent Pashtun poet. And his poetry, he came, I think, a while later than Maulana, but he's also a very impactful poet. And about woman poetry, if I may add a few words here and there about Aisha Durrani and Rabi' Balkhi. Unfortunately, because again, that traditionalism existed in Afghanistan or in the region in general, women did not really get that chance to have a hands-on poetry or writing, and both of them, Rabi' Balkhi and Aisha Durrani, both came from very prominent family. They were the daughters of rulers, and that's why they were literate, and they could write poetry. But if you read the books, Aisha Durrani's collection of poems, Rabi' Balkhi, unfortunately, they only have 6 or 7 pieces, of poetry that is left of her. Her poetry is unfortunately not documented. You find a very different genre. For Rabia, everything was about love. She dared to love. She dared to break that taboo in a very, very male-dominated society, and she paid the price for it. Her brother killed her. So when they find out about her love story with this boy, who some people say he was a slave, and some say he was working as a bookkeeper for his father, for her father, the brother decided to take her to a public bath and ask the man to close the door, and they cut her wrists. And the next day when they found her body, she wrote a verse of poem.
With her blood.
Yes, on the walls of the bath. So with Aisha Durrani, she was more of a Sufistic poet. I can divide her poetry probably to 3 different categories. First category is more praising the rulers. I would say that was a very common method of poetry back then, because if they wanted to draw the attention of rulers or men in power to their writings in court, they would go and write in praise of a king. So that's what Aisha Durrani was doing. But her second half of her poetry is also full of grief, because she lost her daughter, her son in one of the battles when he was around 25 years old. And then the rest of Aisha Durrani's poetry is mostly about her son, which is very sad. So you see a lot of woman emotion in play, which you don't see in Khoshal Khan Khattak. Is very patriotic. Maulana dares to speak about love, about drinking wine openly. You don't see that in women's poetry, unfortunately. So you do feel that they wrote for a very, very traditional society. And unfortunately, out of 2 women poets that we have in that region, one who dared to write about love, she paid for it with her life. So we do see the battle of women. And I have to also say that to this day, when I try to write about love, I cannot. I mean, that's something that I'm ashamed of myself, but I still feel the taboo in society, because I think if I write about love, then people would say, oh, she's in love with somebody, and I'm a married woman, and I don't want that sort of judgment. So, and I feel so weak, and I think to myself, okay, here you are trying to break the taboos, and here you are judging yourself and not allowing. So it's very, very difficult to break those taboos. And then one of the reasons that sometimes I write.
So this ties right in with my next question. This is perfect. How do you situate yourself in the, the traditional classical world and the different styles, love poetry, or the, in honor or that madh, a ruler or king?
Oh God.
How do you situate yourself, especially now in the contemporary period? There are a number of women poets in Afghanistan, and oftentimes they've been suppressed. Some recently were killed.
Yes.
But they are speaking out. They are writing. What would you say your style is? Because your style is clearly influenced by the classics.
Yes. Yeah.
But there is also more to it.
Unfortunately, I think it's not only our society. In any society, when a woman raises her voice, there's an important quote, I don't remember exactly who said, good woman never made history. Mm-hmm. You have to raise your voice, but there's always a price that you pay for that. Where I see myself, I think I have, as I said, I admit, when it comes to human emotions, such as love, such as feelings, etc., I don't have a lot of poems that is written about love. But at the same time, I think as a poet, as an artist, regardless of what field of art you're in, it can be music, it can be painting, you have a responsibility toward your people. I don't want to be a poet who sits and writes about wine and love while my woman like me in Afghanistan are barred from going to school. Where underage girls are being sold on the streets because the families cannot feed them, their family, and they have to sell one of the girls in order to stay alive. Or they're forcefully married to people twice their age, or they commit suicide. So I write openly about especially one of the major hush-hush topic in our society, in any Muslim society, is that you do not criticize the religion. But what I do is I criticize the misinterpretation of religion. What the mullahs and akhunds and all use and say this is religion, but in fact that's a misinterpretation of religion that they use based on the agenda they have. I know that we're not supposed to speak about politics here, but
it's not political at all. But I think that being able to challenge the mainstream is always it takes courage.
It takes a lot of
and it's not something to do. And obviously, you experienced the influence of the Taliban that was there. But I also feel that what's interesting is there are voices, not just in the diaspora, where the Afghan community has gone, but also within Afghanistan.
Absolutely.
Recent poets. And by the way, since you mentioned Khoshhal Khan, I wanted to mention we have some unique, not to change the subject, Pashto material. I've got 2 on the screen right now, and I have a breakdown for you of the various Iranic languages, which is what all this fits into. Persian is what we use for Farsi and Dari. Anything written in the Arabic script, we use Persian. We don't get into the local names. Tajik, if it's in the Arabic script, it's also considered Persian. If it's in the Russian Cyrillic script, then it has its own language code. We have a sizable Kurdish collection, but we have a sizable Pashto and Balochi collection. The Pashto materials are around 7,000, and it is my plan, and Joan is sitting right here, I've brought this up. We have a small collection of beautiful lithographs in Pashto. You see 2 examples of it right now on the screen. My goal is to add these. The Persian is already being done. So slowly we will be adding this material as well. And it's funny because most of the Pashto material is poetry as well. So I just wanted to put that in there before we forget. But in the style of Rumi, let's go back to our actual conversation. This poem that you've written, Setayesh, to me reminded me a lot of the Sufi Rumi poems. And I'm going to have you read it. Did I jump too fast? No. And I really love this poem too. So folks,
you.
here is a second poem, this one in the Sufi tradition by Lina. It's her poem and her translation. And we can ask her specifics after she finishes.
May I also add a little that this is my way of doing the poetry in terms of raising the public awareness about what's happening in Afghanistan. And my motto is to fight the misinterpretation of religion that's being fed to people as religion. I do not want to speak directly to those who are doing that, but I try to educate people. I think that would work way better than taking an extreme stance, especially for countries like Afghanistan, where illiteracy is the core of every crisis that we experience, especially when it comes to religion. People are illiterate, they believe what mullahs are telling them, and I try to clear what the religion actually says and what the mullah says, and contrast both together and tell people that this is actually religion and this is something false that the mullahs are trying to feed you. ستایش نه خراباتیم و شوق خرابات مراست، نه می و ساقی و میخانه مناجات مراست، نه به کف صبح و در دل همه بغض و کینم، نه چو زاهد به لبم ورد و به دل بیدینم، نه چو درویش که در بند سرایت باشم، نه ملنگم که ز تو کاسه گدایت باشم، نه به مسجد و کلیسا به در دست دعا، نه پی پرده پلیدی و برون مرد خدا. من تو را در تپش قلب یکی مور سیاه، من تو را در رگ گلبرگ و نفسهای گیا، من تو را در فر پرواز کبوتر از جال، من تو را در گذر روز و مه و ساعت و سال، من تو را در پس هر موج خروشان و روان، من تو را در کف هر کودک و هر پیر و جوان، من تو را در بر هر رنگ و ز خود بیرنگی، من تو را در پی هر شادی و هر دلتنگی، من تو را در تن هر جا و مکان میبینم، من به هر خلقتی از عشق نشان میبینم، من خود از خویش در این دیر کهن با خبرم، من خودم خلقت محبوب، خودم یک اثرم. ما چه بهوده تو را در پی جا می جوییم، گنج در خانه و ما گرد سرا می جوییم، اینکه هر خلقت تو از تو نشان است به ما، همه او هرچه در این کوی و مکان است به ما.
Beautiful.
Thank you.
Beautiful. So to me, again, this is the biggest veneration, if you like, praise of God, spirit, universe, whatever you want to call the higher being. And it is very Sufi-esque. The style is very much, reminds me of Rumi poetry. I'm also showcasing the oldest Rumi manuscript. We have it on display for you at the library. This is from, I think, 1521, this item is a very old manuscript that we have. Actually, it says 1441, but I think it's a little later. In any case, Lina Jan, that is really a beautiful poem. And again, you feel the spirit, and it's essentially saying that your religion is between you and your God.
I see, I don't find God in the mosque or in the church or in a
Exactly.
synagogue. If I'm walking and I see a butterfly flying in front of me, that's God. If I see the rain dropping, that's God. And when I look at myself in the mirror, I'm a proof that God exists and God is within me. So I don't really need to find any specific way to worship or to be with God.
So this is a perfect place to say I've hogged the microphone enough. I'm going to ask one of my lovely colleagues to come help. This is your time to speak with this wonderful poetess that we are so honored to have amongst us today. I have to say, I initially had Lina on my list of speakers in my former Persian book lecture series that was pretty much came to an end in 2019 before COVID. And she was the next person on the list, and COVID hit.
No.
So I never gave up. We waited till 2025. Now that we're doing programs again, here we are. And I'm just delighted that Lina is here and she's reading her poems. So Sana ji, by the way, I want to put out a few words here for people who have made this program happen. Sana Mirza, who you're seeing behind, back there, she's hiding. They did the heavy lifting for this program. She's been instrumental in getting everything to come together. I want to thank also Yoram for his support, and especially Joan, the head of the Near East section, for also supporting us in having this poetry event. Yoram, please stand up so people can see you. Yoram is our new chief, the new chief of the African Middle Eastern Division, and Joan, who you met, is our section head. But here we have a number of minutes, about 15, 20 minutes for questions from the audience. Please ask away.
Thank you so much. That was really incredible. I must admit, I found this event because I was visiting the library and I had the best luck of running into the event and opportunity to hear from you. Thank you so much. And I must say, your history, your story really resonates with me. Unfortunately, like so many of us, I'm originally from Ethiopia and I've kind of like had that migrant life, moving from place to place. And it really, I feel you when you say that you've been to so many places, but yet you don't feel like at home. But that's a way of searching, and I hope that we all will find that someday. But my question to you is, especially, what do you hope for your readers, those of us who are outside the Afghanistan culture and language, to take from your poetry? What would be the strongest message that you would like us to get from your beautiful poetry? And to add another one, do you have any favorites? I know that question is really hard. It's like picking between your babies, but if you have any special connection with any of your work, that would be lovely to hear. Thank you so much.
I think the major message that I want people to take away from my poetry is humanity. You know, we're living in a very chaotic world that politically people are against people because of religion, people are against people because of ethnicity. We are at the end of the day humans, and we all live in this small globe. You know, I take Rumi's poetry very seriously when it comes to this. We're not here forever. We are just journeying through this land or through this place we call Earth. So does it really worth that we have so much hate toward one another? You know, the message that I want you to take is humanity. And I think, as I said, one of the biggest lessons that I took from my life as a refugee is that a person in Iran, a person in Afghanistan and Pakistan and India and Canada and Europe, we have so much alike, then we are different. So try to be kind to one another. I think life is too short to harvest hate toward others just because we don't agree with their religion or we don't agree with their mentality. And I hope I managed to do that. You know, tolerance, love, and humanity. And the second question, you said, which of my poems do I like the most? Okay, here I'm going to share something funny with you. I can never memorize any poetry. Today when I come here, I forgot my poem, and I told Sanaji that, can you kindly print my 2 poems so I can read off the paper, because I cannot. So I write poetry. I have 2 books, but I don't sometimes remember some of them. And I come across, I'm like, wow, did I write this? So I think what I like about my poem is that when I read it, I can feel, it's like a history book to me. I do not have in a specific form. As I said, as a poet, I feel responsible for what I do. And I try to document as much as I can about what is happening in Afghanistan to women, political, otherwise. So when I read one of my poems and I have a little note beneath it, for example, I wrote this poem when this girl was killed in a suicide bomb, I feel proud automatically. I said, okay, at least I did what I could. I used the power of pen to write about her so her story is not forgotten. So in that sense, I like all my poems. But if you ask me for one specific one, I don't know any of them by heart. And yeah, I can't really tell you.
Yeah, hi, thank you so much.
Hi.
How do you think your poetry has changed over the years, both as you've gotten older and through sort of different versions of our lens between Western society and the Near East?
Well, as I said, most of my poems, I take inspiration from what is happening in Afghanistan. And I find it that I'm much more braver now. Before, I used to sugarcoat words. Now I can curse, and I like that. So that confidence, I think, came to me as I aged. And as I said, you either express your opinion firmly and you stand for it, or you just keep on sugarcoating stuff not to hurt this person, not to offend this side. You might as well say it. So I like the person and the poem that I write now more than 20-some years ago, because 20 years ago I was trying to please people. Now I try to express my opinion, and I don't really care if people find it, they're offended by it,
Oh, hello.
Hi.
A little nervous. Firstly, thank you. I think the way you balance vulnerability and also joy at the same time is something I've really never really seen so well. So thank you
Thank
for
you so
showing
much.
all of that to us.
Sure.
The other thing is to add to the representation. Both my parents are immigrants. My dad's from Chile, so another continent. But something I think you've also felt is this sense of cultural homelessness, of going between all these different countries and feeling not quite like you're in one place. And so I don't know if you were to sort of, I don't know, how do you balance that joy that comes with that and the sort of loneliness?
I love it. I feel like I belong to all these countries. I go to Pakistan. If I see people from Pakistan and India, I start speaking in Urdu with them. I know every piece of their culture. I can dance with them. I can eat their food, make comments about what they're eating, their celebration. If I go to Montreal and I see people speaking in French, I feel like I'm at home. Voilà, c'est mon maison, c'est mon cité, c'est tout. Alors, it helps you understand people. I celebrate my identity because I'm so multi-layered that I don't feel like I belong to one. I feel enriched. I feel like I belong to all these cultures and I can get along with all of them. I can sit and talk about their food, culture, etc. And I find myself very fortunate because in today's age, a lot of conflict that exists between nations is because of misunderstanding each other. If we live with each other, if we share bread with each other, I think we would be each other's best friend. And this life is frankly too short to hate one another. We have to celebrate life. So I think it's more than being negative. Of course, I have my share of, as I said, challenges in every country that I had to overcome. But if I sort of weigh positive versus negative that I gain from that type of, experience, I would say it's very positive. Yeah.
Thank you. Lina, thank you so much. You're such an inspiration.
Oh, thank
you're a
you.
jewel, really. Thank you.
Thank you.
My question is, I'm curious to know whether your poetry has made it into Afghanistan and or other countries in the region, and if so, what is the reaction, the feedback, and if it hasn't, how can you get it into the region?
Yeah, very good question. When actually before the fall of Republic in Afghanistan, some of my poems was composed into song, and they were sang by a group of girls in a girls' high school. Yeah, which was amazing. And one or two musicians also composed songs based on one or two poems that I wrote about suicide bombing, because during Republic era, Afghanistan, one of the huge security challenges that they were facing was this constant, unfortunately, suicide bombing, where a lot of people were getting killed. And now, since the women's movement has started abroad and inside Afghanistan against what the Taliban are doing to the woman, so many of the poems that I write is picked by so many women inside and outside Afghanistan from my Facebook. I usually post it on Facebook, and they all recite it. So I recite that poetry on camera, and they post it themselves. So I pick those clips and I share it with others just to encourage them. So that's one of the biggest, compliments that I received, and that still encourages me to write is exactly that so many women come under the poems that I post. They write that you speak on our behalf. Thank you for being our voice. And that's my reward. That's what keeps me going, yeah.
Okay, before we take the next question, I quickly wanted to throw this in. We don't have that much time. On the screen, I just wanted to point out, if you search on the library's WDL page, World Digital Library, we have a huge archive of Afghan material that we've digitized. We also have web archiving projects from Afghanistan. One is on gender issues and women, but there were others that were on government and elections. So please keep these in mind so you can search. I have to plug these in so you're aware that there is all this material on the website. Last but not least, here is a list of resources plus lectures we've done in the past, the full videos. The video of this program will be available too. You can see these videos online. Now, going back to what Lina John said, we have one of your first book, Eve's Apple. This book we do not have.
This is actually the first. Apple
This
and
is the
Eve,
first
yeah,
one? Okay.
that's the
So
second
we
one.
have the second one. This book we don't have, and I was going to beg her, see if she will donate it to the library, because this is, she has two wonderful books, and I looked mainly at the second book because we have that one. It's on my desk right now. And so, thank you. But long and short, I think these books are available, right? If someone wants to buy it, how can they get them?
I think both Apple and Eve and Promise of Paradise are available on Amazon, but they're in Farsi, not English. So unfortunately, yeah.